And at this time, I would like to invite Tim Pratt, Vice President of Strategic Accounts for our Diamond sponsor, LeGrand, onto the stage to introduce our Future of the Industry moderator. Tim, will you join me now?
Good morning and welcome. As a Diamond sponsor for this event, we're excited to bring you this exciting group of speakers. Let's get the morning started with the Future of the Industry panel, moderated by Michael Marks. Mike is the managing partner of Indian River Consulting Group, a firm that focuses exclusively on market access and distribution channels. Before co-founding IRCG, Mike worked in distribution management for more than 20 years. He is a trusted advisor to senior executives, a permanent University of Innovative Distribution faculty member, a distribution company board director, and is the senior research fellow for the NAW Institute of Distribution Excellence. Please welcome Michael Marks and the Future of the Industry panel.
Some room, we're gonna build a new world. Say we're headed for the future.
Kill the music. We're here to talk about the future of the industry, and I think I've actually got a pretty easy time of it because I managed to, I talked to a bunch of folks I knew in the industry, and I said I need to get some people for a panel that are smart, will actually say what they think and have some view about the future, and this is what I've got here. So I'm going to ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves, and we're going to have a conversation about where the world might be going. Mo talked about 10 years ago, between there and now, and looking at the change, and we're going to try to take it another 10 years in the future. So Walt, can you say just a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here?
Good morning, Walt Reynolds. I'm president of the Reynolds Company. We have 18 operations in the great states of Texas and Louisiana. We're focused in the commercial industrial markets. And I ended up here because oil prices have dropped and I need some new ideas.
That's good. David White, how about you?
Good morning, Mike. David White. I'm president of Shealy Electrical Wholesalers. We're in the Carolinas. We've got 18 locations, similar to Walt. Worked in both sides of the industry. I spent about 10 years with Square D back in the 90s and came over to distribution in early 1999 and have been there since.
Okay, Brian, how about you?
Sure, Michael. My name is Brian McNally, and I'm a VP and CEO of Rexel North America. And I've been in this industry for a little over 30 weeks, but I spent more than 30 years in the electronics distribution industry. So I'm here because of your tremendous persuasive skills.
Actually, Brian and I came out of the same industry, so we could play Who Do You Know a lot. Amir, how about you?
Yeah, thanks. So Amir Paul, I have responsibility for Square D in the US. I joined from Dell about 2 years ago, so completely different industry. It's been a humbling experience, and David asked me to participate because he thought it might be interesting. I'm not sure if he thought it would be amusing or interesting. We'll figure that out.
Well, we'll know shortly. So David WITZ, you're kind of, as far as I'm concerned, you're the star of the prom because you're real customers. So explain a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah, David WITZ, president and fourth generation owner of Continental Electric right here in Chicago. So welcome to Chicago and go Blackhawks. I was admiring Amir's socks over here, and I got to get me a pair of those. But thank you for having me, and looking forward to the discussion.
Super. And by the way, Amir actually walked over here this morning, so he's also a local Chicago person. So wading right into this, Mo was talking about what happened from 10 years ago to today. If we step out to 2025, and let's assume that, well, maybe I'm wrong, but that all this internet and web stuff and everybody's got themselves all excited, it's all old news then. What are some of the things that might describe how this industry is going to look? What are some of the changes? Who wants to go first?
I'll start. Back to the amusing part, right? So look, I think one of the things we talk a lot about is what the impact of e-commerce is. And we live through this in other industries. And the business to consumer version that we all aspire to, right? What we do with Amazon and other companies, even in companies that have very high e-commerce penetration, the business to business part of it is still done behind a firewall. It is not public and available. So I think e-commerce will develop, but I think the fundamental structure of the industry, that relationships matter, that you have to understand your customer's business, that service will continue to drive those dynamics, I don't think that changes. I think how those transactions are done, e-commerce will facilitate. And I think how we design that is a very important component. And we all have to be very thoughtful of how we really create value there. The other part I think that is very interesting, and I'm sure some of our other speakers will touch on this, is how energy distribution itself will change. If you think about microgrids and energy storage, the landscape of how energy is distributed in the country, I think is a big change coming. So those are the two that we certainly spend a lot of time thinking about.
And before I go to the other folks, AAMIR, the sense I get from you is that those models of what it's going to look like don't actually exist yet. People are still making them up as they go along.
I think that's always true. And by definition, that's the only way to do it. Because if you come in with a very defined point of view, the only certainty is you're going to be wrong. So I think we believe in experimentation and working with our partners and our customers to try things. Some of them will work, some of them won't. But experimentation is the only way to get it right.
David Witz, what's your take 10 years from now?
I guess the stuff that keeps me up at night, one of which is the industrialization of the construction process, and whether that's prefabrication, modularization, if that's a word I just stumbled on. It's early in the morning, by the way. I mean, who plans these things at 9 o'clock in the morning? Well, we're not even at 9 o'clock yet. But that has a huge impact for distributors. What role are you going to play in that? It has a huge impact for contractors, especially unionized contractors. What role does a union play in that? It changes the whole, way they train, because now you have fewer highly skilled people on the job, and probably more just what we would call installers. And so they've got to get through a little paradigm issue that they have where they train everybody to the same standard. So I look at that, modularization, industrialization, and we're planning our business towards that.
So, and by the way, we were talking before we started, you're using a lot of BIM, and can you talk a little bit about how you're using that technology? Because I think that fits right into what AAMIR was saying.
Yeah, we don't design anything in 2D anymore. So whether it's BIM or it's in 3D modeling, we design everything in the model. So we have a full-time engineering department. And the problem in our industry is that we give that away, right? So all it's done is kind of raise the bar, raise the cost for us to deliver the same product. Now, in the end, it's a better product, but it takes the design process and moves it forward in the schedule and makes things a little bit different. Now you have to have architects and engineers, and this gets involved with prefab too. You have to get architects and engineers on board earlier with decisions when they're used to making them later in the construction schedule. So, we prefab walls, put devices in them, and an architect, for example, isn't used to making a device color selection until about 3/4 of the way through the project. Now we're asking for it before we even have boots on the ground.
Wow. What's your take? Brian, what's your take?
Michael, I'll give a perspective more from the electronics point of view. Given the evolution there were some interesting dynamics. I mean, the industry moved very quickly from components to value-added solutions, to complex solutions, to integration. And this whole notion of prefabrication, and in a business driven by economies of scale, consolidation eventually takes place. And we watched the industry in the United States in electronics between the 80s and 2000 go from tens of thousands of distributors to thousands of distributors to hundreds of distributors. And the market eventually delivered high levels of consolidation where 20 years ago the top 10 players had about 50% of the spend, to where today in electronics the top 2 players have about 70% of the spend. And as a perspective...
That was the top 2?
Top 2.
Okay.
In an electrical distribution, the model in France is a very large electrical model. It's very similar to what electronics looks like in the United States. So as I think about the U.S. 10 years from now, that notion of consolidation to me rings true. It seems like our supplier partners will continue to consolidate, to acquire, to build new technologies to round out their solutions. And in the distribution space, distributors will acquire and grow organically in order to have a more full offering, better solutions, able to meet the needs of very, very large customers and very, very small customers.
What's your take, David White?
Well, David, I thought we were the only industry that gave stuff away. No, I agree. I think we'll continue to try and move as a distributor. We'll try and move from a product-based selling organization to more of a solutions and service-based organization, and that is the one concern, is that when we create that value, that we don't give it away in the marketplace, and we're challenged by that on a regular basis.
Yeah, it was kind of funny when David started talking about they got all the engineers and their cost goes up, they don't get paid for it. I'm thinking that's just like a distributor, you know.
Exactly.
Well, what's your take on that? Where it's
I think there's a couple of interesting things out there as I look out 10 years, and I think the most interesting is I think manufacturers are looking for distributors to do more, and I think we're not just going to be transactional. We're already doing a lot of more value-add things, but I think the manufacturer will continue to collaborate with the distributor to help them really understand. I think we're going to take more of a stakeholder role in our manufacturer's business, and I think the customer is going to ask the distributor to continue to add value to their business. So I see the distributor evolving into a completely different thing than it is today. I see the distributor becoming very much more engaged in project management tools. Certainly technology is going to change in the online buying stores and that kind of thing. But what manufacturers' role play in helping that distributor create that value, I think it's big. And I think the distributor and the manufacturer are going to become closer stakeholders in each other's businesses.
That really supports what Brian was saying as the process keeps evolving and going. The implication to me as I think about it, markets over time tend to align by size. You know, large customers buy from large distributors and small customers buy from small distributors. That size thing really kind of fits. And as all of you were talking about pre-staging jobs and how this process is changing, what impact does that have on an owner-operator that chooses not to get involved in all that value added, and they have, you know, I sell excellent service and I have excellent people. I mean, is that really in jeopardy, or are they always going to be there? Not all at once, guys.
Well, I certainly think there's a place for that. You know, the customer base is very diversified, and what the customers ask you to do, you know, a lot of customers are open to ideas of coming in and taking costs out of their business, and a lot of customers are not. So, I think it's the evolution of a relationship is subject to what the customer and the distributor want to do, and I think there's a place for a transactional distributor, and there always will be.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on that. You know, the value proposition delivered by a small niche player is really, really important. And as long as that customer base is very well defined and there's a really well defined product and service level offering that meets the needs of the customers, there are plenty of niches and spaces, whether it's small, large, or unique, where players can fit in the world. You know, my only advice is that as the world changes, as products get more complex and solutions get more complex and software becomes an important part of the offer and tools and solutions, you need to change and adapt and be able to ensure that your value proposition delivers those to the niche if that's what the niche requires.